Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss Boris Johnson's potential options if he wants to win back his authority. Now, I don't believe he can achieve this, but as Johnson isn't planning on going anywhere, he obviously thinks he can. So it might be worth looking at what he may try and do. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, like I say, I don't think Johnson can do anything to save himself now. 148 Tory MPs who wanted him gone without an obvious successor is not going to get any easier for Johnson if likely contenders start opening discussions about their own credentials. There are numerous pitfalls still waiting for Boris Johnson to make it even worse, including, inevitably, more Partygate leaks, the potential for two brutal by-elections 2 weeks tomorrow, the COVID inquiry, but above all, the Privileges Committee investigation. When Labour got that through Parliament, I was not shy about saying at the time that it was an absolute masterstroke. People had criticised Starmer for pushing it so hard, but that was a major coup. That could bring Johnson down without the need for panicked Tory MPs acting like a rabbit caught in headlights. But Boris Johnson obviously thinks he can get through anything. The consequence of having a life of such privilege that he has never had to suffer serious consequences for his actions, no matter how badly he has messed up. His is a life where there is absolutely zero incentive for getting decisions right. None at all, because it doesn't matter to him. Makes no difference. The only incentive a life like his gives you is for unlimited ambition, unlimited greed. So what do I think Johnson could do to try and rescue his authority? Well, the first thing to do is consider the problem. Boris Johnson needn't be facing an imminent election. His party's got a huge majority, and no matter how annoyed the public are, they don't have to put themselves to a public vote for 2.5 more years. The public do not get to issue votes of no confidence. Johnson's problem is not the confidence of the public, it is the confidence of his MPs. Of course, the reason that his MPs are wavering is because the public have lost trust in Johnson and may punish any MPs who support him. But although we compare Johnson's confidence vote with his predecessor, Theresa May's, who actually won hers more convincingly, the two are not really comparable. Theresa May had already weakened her authority by losing a majority in a general election that she triggered needlessly. She'd shown herself to be an electoral problem, which means there was zero way they were going to let her lead them into the next election. Electoral liability. She also couldn't get her MPs to agree on the most pressing legislation of the time, the Brexit withdrawal agreement. Now, Johnson doesn't have those problems. Tory MPs at the moment are broadly on with his legislative agenda. They're okay with it. Like even the really horrific stuff. You get a few Tory MPs who tut at the undemocratic and inhumane nature of some of it, but they still vote for it. What Johnson needs to do is get his MPs to support his authority. He already has their support for his manifesto. So to my mind, there are 3 ways to do this. First, get the elephant out of the room, out of the way, a general election is a theoretical route. If Johnson genuinely believes that in an election campaign, he can persuade people that he is still a better option than Labour, then winning a general election, even with a reduced majority, would see him win that authority back. Losing some of your majority does, of course, make rebels more powerful. But there are very few rebels really against his parliamentary business. Like I say, they're mostly upset with his poll rating. And if he were to win a general election, even with a reduced majority, all of a sudden they'll go, oh, actually, yeah, come a general election, you're really good. Yeah, sure. And they'll go back to supporting him. And although some commentators have ruled this option out, saying, oh, he's not stupid enough to do it, I wouldn't. Because it's not a case of stupidity, it's a case of desperation. I noticed the Daily Mail yesterday pushing the idea that, but the alternative to Johnson's Tories is a Labour SNP alliance. As at least one person pointed out in the comments yesterday, they didn't mention the Lib Dems, did they? No, of course not. Because swing Tory voters don't mind the Lib Dems as an alternative. But the Daily Mail there going in early to persuade voters that, you might disapprove of Johnson, but the alternative is still worse. Why do that over 2 years from an election? They may think that Johnson could actually keep a snap election in his back pocket and they're trying to prepare the groundwork. If Johnson wins, he gets his authority back, no question. He would probably lose, of course. But if he feels he has no other option, what does that matter? For a man only concerned with himself, he may decide it's better to put himself to the judgment of the public than backstabbing ungrateful MPs who should appreciate being able to bask in his glory. The second option is the stick. Now, I have seen it suggested by some of his allies that Johnson should withdraw the whip from prominent rebels and come down hard on dissent. He can't withdraw the whip from everyone who publicly rebelled, because then he'll have no majority left. He did do this in 2019 before the general election. Back then it meant he lost what theoretical majority he had. This time he could actually afford to lose some MPs if he targeted the ringleaders. Because remember that these rebels are rebelling because they think Johnson will cost them their seat. Well, if Johnson withdraws the whip or has them deselected, they're guaranteed to lose their seats, with the potential exceptions of a few who may defect to the likely challenger in a general election. We have had one Red Wall MP defect to Labour, for example. That won't concern Johnson if it does the job of keeping the rest in line. Given how ruthless he has been in crushing dissent in the party, it would not surprise me at all to see him attempt something like this. Frankly, I think it's his best option from a strategic point of view as well, because it could actually work. The third option is the carrots. So instead of wreaking vengeance upon those who challenged him publicly, because most of them did it in secret anyway, he doesn't know who they are, he could seek to win them back over. Now, the only way to do this is persuade them that he will win the public back round. Right now, it's quite clear if there was a general election, he would lose it. But if he can persuade them that he's got things in motion that will, in 2 years' time, get it back round. If we assume that Johnson could escape consequences from the Privileges Committee and the COVID inquiry, this plan would not actually be that insane, because the Tories have got a couple of big aces up their sleeve. The election is still a long way off. If they wait until the last minute, it's January 2025. That's a long time. Also, Labour's poll lead is not that high. Right now, yeah, it's high enough to take away their majority, but it can be turned back around if the government could reverse the current economic fortunes of the country. Right now, they're having a problem. They keep pushing their culture wars, their anti-woke agenda. It ain't working anymore. It's not working. Why? Because, and I've said this about Brexit years ago, ultimately, people, yes, will get outraged and use their votes for stupid things that make no difference to them. But if something matters in their life, like not being able to pay the bills, all of a sudden that takes precedence. They don't care about your anti-woke wars. They don't care about all of this because they don't know how to pay the bills. So until that is changed, people are going to focus on what the government's going to do about their plight. Now, naturally, in terms of getting the economy back on track, Brexit, as well as general incompetence from a cabinet of muppets, I think makes this impossible. But Tory MPs don't necessarily know that. So Johnson may try and persuade them that he's got a plan. It needs to be a plan that sounds credible to Conservatives, that given a couple more years will yield fruit. This will be along his already well-rehearsed lines of cutting taxes. That's been in the tabloids again today and yesterday. Oh, cut taxes, cut taxes, cut taxes. Yeah, it pleases the Tory MPs. It doesn't help us, but it pleases the Tory MPs. Even though he actually keeps increasing them. Every time he talks about cutting taxes, he always seems to actually increase them. And of course they'll have to increase them because they've got no growth. And also cutting the civil service as well. Even though that will also do exactly what it did when David Cameron did it, paralyse the government, crush the economy even more. But aside from the scandals still to come, there is a major weakness with this plan. And that is that the Tory party now depends on two very different types of voters to retain power. We clumsily call them the Red Wall and the Blue Wall. The Red Wall voters want public spending. They want their levelling up promises fulfilled. Yes, they voted for Brexit, a lot of them, and to a certain extent that won them over. But Johnson told them that it's done now. So why should they vote for him next time? Because he'll level up their communities? Well, he promised that last time, but all he's done since is break those promises. What he needs to do, even if he tries to say, oh yeah, but it takes time, it could take 10, 15 years, they might go along with that and go, okay, yeah. But why aren't we seeing anything? Not so much as a cement truck has come into view. He hasn't even started. The recently opened Elizabeth line, which covers a little bit of London, costs more money than the entire north of England had spent on it. So could Johnson start splashing the cash and upgrading the Red Wall at last? Well, tricky. Because the Blue Wall don't like that. They already have nice things. They don't want to pay for others to catch up. Apart from anything else, it'll reduce their house prices. It'll reduce their advantage in general. And this is the conflict that the Tories created for themselves the second they embarked on a strategy of trying to pretend to be Middle England toffs for their heartlands and altruistic party of the people to everywhere else. Johnson's plan was always to not give the Red Wall what he promised, but to recycle those promises for the next election. So we don't have those 40 new hospitals, but not to worry. According to the Health Secretary, we're still going to get them, plus an extra 8 to make it 48. So now it's like, oh yeah, so we didn't build those hospitals that we promised, yeah. But if you vote for us again, tell you what, we'll throw in an extra 8. Can't be bad, can it? Can't be bad. 2 for £1. Fool me once and all that. But if Johnson can persuade his MPs that he has a plan that would eventually work and get the economy back on track, it doesn't have to be a good plan, because almost none of his MPs understand how the economy works, otherwise they wouldn't be Tories. Then he might buy himself some time. So those are the 3 tactics he can probably employ as appropriate. And if it weren't for the fact that the Privileges Committee will be beating him up this autumn, or if he somehow survives that, the COVID inquiry next year, along with any other scandals we don't even know about yet, then it might be worth a shot. As it is, these tactics, I think, will largely seem to be delaying tactics that are only going to achieve a further disconnect between the voting public and all Conservative MPs who refuse to drop Johnson. This is why I say, whatever had happened at this confidence vote this week, the outcome was always going to be bad for the Conservatives and good for everyone else. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please click the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.